driving across this little causeway over the water here, and there are two small to mid-sized icebergs just floating next to the road.
Each spring, these giant chunks of ice float past the shores of this Canadian island, Newfoundland. One of these icebergs sank the Titanic. People climb them, companies make vodka out of them, some countries have thought about towing them across the Atlantic to supply clean drinking water. They're a beautiful, fleeting image of our changing climate. And for this cold, remote island, they could symbolize a new future.
Alright, so I brought this piece of ice with me. Yes, I brought this. I wanted to make some ice cream at home. So we're going to make some ice cream.
So how did these get here? Well, Newfoundland sits across the street from Greenland, separated by the Labrador Sea. 80% of Greenland is covered by glaciers, called the Greenland ice sheet. In the winter, snowfall builds up the ice, and in the summer, some of it melts and breaks away. That leads to a process called calving, where large chunks of ice break away from the glaciers. Those become icebergs, and a current carries them south until many of them land here, the east coast of Newfoundland, nicknamed Iceberg Island.
Once they get here, people are eager to see them, and yeah, makes sense. Sometimes the ice within a glacier will melt and then refreeze, and that gives you these cool blue streaks that run through the icebergs. Sometimes underwater, the ice at the bottom of an iceberg melts and it brings warmer water and nutrients up to the surface, and plants will grow around the base of the iceberg. It's wild. They're striking and beautiful, but for Newfoundland and the people who live here, they're a lot more than that. And to understand why, we need to go back 30 years ago.
Fishing has been the backbone of Newfoundland's economy for thousands of years, cod in particular. Canada actually used to be the largest seafood exporter in the world, and Newfoundland was a big part of that. But in the 70s and 80s, it started to become clear that something bad was happening. Overfishing had massively depleted the cod stocks, and scientists and the Canadian government started to fear that they would go extinct if fishing continued at anywhere near the same rate. So in 1992, John Crosby, who was the Minister of Fisheries and Oceans at the time, announced a moratorium on cod fishing in Newfoundland. Pretty much a complete stop.
This situation is not our fault, Mr. Crosby. This situation is not
my
our
fault either.
No, it's the government's mismanagement. It's mismanagement.
I didn't take the fish from the goddamn water.
This is going to affect everybody. There's a lot of people's homes are going to be gone, cars gone, but this is going back to their soup kitchen days.
So you've got all these people who are now out of work and need to find some way to keep their livelihood and their economy afloat. A lot of people kept fishing, but shifted instead to focus on shrimp and crab and other shellfish. But Newfoundland started to lean into one industry in particular: tourism. Over the past few decades, they've invested in some clever tourism marketing campaigns and worked to extend the tourism season into spring and fall. And it's working. Tourism in Newfoundland has been on the rise, and at some points it's been growing faster than any other Canadian province. In recent years, tourism has been over a $500 million industry here. It creates 20,000 jobs and supports over 2,800 businesses. There's a lot to see here: whales, puffins, some beautiful national parks and towns. But one of the main tourism draws is the icebergs. 79% of the people who visit Newfoundland in the spring go iceberg watching, and a lot of businesses have sprung up surrounding the iceberg tourism industry, boat tours in particular. You'll actually see a lot of boat tour companies run by people who used to be cod fishermen, and after that fishery collapsed, they decided to take the tools and knowledge that they already had on the water and put it to a different use to keep making money. This has been a great opportunity for some of these communities, but it might be fleeting. Global warming accelerates melting and destabilizes glaciers, meaning ice breakups are larger and happen more frequently. In 2010, a massive iceberg broke off of Greenland's Petermann Glacier. It was nicknamed the Petermann Ice Island because it was 4 times the size of Manhattan. Global warming is making large ice breakups like this more and more common, which is problematic for several reasons, but especially sea level rise. Take a look at a satellite view of the Petermann Glacier and you'll see that it lies in a fjord.
So part of it is a glacier over land, and part of it is sea ice over water. Sea ice is already in the ocean, so it doesn't contribute to sea level rise when it melts. That's why we don't have massive sea level rise when it melts in the summer. But this fjord full of sea ice is almost like a cork. It's holding this glacier back and keeping it on land. The more of this sea ice breaks away, the faster this melting glacier flows into the ocean, and the faster sea levels will rise.
That's particularly bad for places like Newfoundland because this is a part of the world where sea levels can be expected to rise even more dramatically than others. And a lot of Newfoundlanders already live within like a few feet of sea level anyway. Not to mention plenty of other consequences like large glacier breakups can cause tsunami waves that can threaten villages up here. It's a whole can of worms. Finally, sea ice breaking up faster affects the icebergs themselves. In the near future, it probably means more icebergs and larger ones, but that won't last forever. If sea ice keeps melting at a faster rate, the icebergs will taper off and eventually they could disappear entirely.
If you've been paying attention, you'll probably notice Newfoundland's story beginning to repeat itself. This little island seems to be watching yet another profitable industry fade away from overuse. But this time, it's out of their control. It's yet another reminder of the very real consequences of our changing climate. Not just on the most vulnerable reaches of our planet, but the people who depend on them. Let's acknowledge not just the data, the degrees of warming, the miles of ice melting, but the cultures and livelihoods that may be washed away with it.
Before you go, I want to give a quick thank you to my friends over at Epidemic Sound for sponsoring this video and sponsoring this trip out to Newfoundland. By using Epidemic Sound, you get access to a massive library of amazing sound effects, and when I say massive, I mean truly massive, like over 90,000 sound effects that you can download, and a lot of the time you'll find a single sound effect with like dozens of different versions, so you can click through them all and find exactly what you're looking for. I use their sound effects to make my footage more atmospheric and immersive, to give my motion graphics a bit more personality, and also just to find all of the random little sound effects that you just need to complete an edit, like zippers and footsteps. A video is simply incomplete without sound design, but sound is also an incredible creative tool. It can have such a visceral impact on the way someone feels watching your films. Music also has a really visceral impact on the way someone feels watching your films. And for the record, Epidemic Sound also has a massive library of amazing music. And you're not gonna get a copyright strike on YouTube or Instagram or Facebook. Wherever you're posting your work, they've got you covered. All right, so here's where it gets good. If you wanna try it out for yourself, there's a link in the description of this video, and you can use that link to get a 30-day free trial of either a personal or commercial plan. And at the moment, you can also use the code Aidin50 at checkout to get 50% off of a personal annual subscription. So you can get 1 year access to all of these sound effects for their personal plan for $54, which is ridiculous. It's thanks to sponsors like Epidemic Sound that I can go on these trips making these videos for you as a full-time job and not go absolutely broke in the process. So thank you again to Epidemic Sound for sponsoring these videos, sponsoring this trip. I hope you've enjoyed them. Thank you so much for watching these, and I can't wait to see you in the next one.